Thank you very much for that lovely music. The group is called Flute Fusion, and are a number of our flute students under the direction of Angelita Floyd, and it's very good to have them here today. I think they really help set the overall mood for our day today. I'm Joel Hawk. I'm Dean of the College of Humanities, Arts, and Sciences. I welcome you today to the celebration of the life of Aaron Podolefsky, especially remembering the time he spent with us at the University of Northern Iowa. We're happy to have with us members of Aaron's family, who are our friends as well. Ronnie, glad you could make it, and Isaac and Laura Podolefsky. Another son, Noah, is unable to join us today. He's in Colorado. Our program today, as you can see, consists of musical selections, several of which were Aaron's personal favorites, a reading of one of his favorite texts, remembrances from a number of friends, both those who are present and others who sent their greetings to us, and remarks from the family. We have also set a time aside for anyone in the community here today who would care to share remembrances as well. You may choose to come forward to share your remarks, or Steve Carignan will have a microphone and provide it to you at that time. At the conclusion of the program portion of the ceremony, I would invite you to join us in a reception across the hall in the Georgian Lounge, which features a number of items made especially for this occasion by the UNI catering staff. Our first speaker today will be the 10th President of the University of Northern Iowa, President Bill Rood.
Ronnie, Isaac, Laura, welcome. Welcome home. Welcome to this celebration today. It's an honor to celebrate the life of a great, great academician, a great administrator, and a good friend of mine, Dr. Aaron Podolefsky. We celebrate his legacy, his service, his contributions to this great university, and to the Academy of Higher Education. Aaron Podolefsky served as Dean of the UNI College of Social and Behavioral Sciences from 1990 to 1998, as Provost from 1998 to 2005, went on to Missouri State, and most recently had been serving as President of Buffalo State, a position he accepted in 2010. I knew Aaron Podolefsky personally. I always called Aaron as the guy at the other end of the phone. When I always thought I had the biggest problem in the world, and I called him up and I said, "Aaron, can you believe this?" And he just calmly said, "Yep." "Yep, Bill, and let me give you 4 other examples." And that was always very calming, because when you're a president, there is another president on campus you can go around and say, "Can you believe this?" You got to have folks out there that you can call, that you can see, that you can talk to. And Aaron was a very calming influence in my life. I also knew him for several professional organizations, especially ASCU. And every time I saw him at a professional meeting, kind of never wavered. There he was. You could count on him. I occasioned to always enjoy sitting next to him, because he'd hit me back with his elbow and he says, "Yeah, can you believe this?" And that was helpful to me. You also need to know he was so well respected in those professional organizations. He was respected among his peers, that as a former dean and a provost, we all knew Aaron for his academic leadership, his wisdom, and his great sense of humor. It was of no surprise to see him become a university president, not just once, but twice. We kind of always used to joke, since both of us became university presidents twice, that we hit our heads once too often. He was truly a servant leader. He was all about you. He wasn't about him. He was all about, what do you need me to do to cause your success? He was genuine. He was caring. He was of the highest integrity. He had great vision. And he always wasn't satisfied with making something great. He wanted to make it even better than great. He was an anthropologist, as you all know. He was always interested in culture, values, attitudes, beliefs, behaviors, practices, both normal and goofy, about all the members of an organization, and had many examples to tell the same. He knew that the culture underlying an organization determined its readiness for change as well as its readiness for success. And when organizations seek greatness, they often find aspects of their organizational culture that need change. And a strong, focused organizational culture starts with a compelling vision that is supported by great leadership, such as that demonstrated by Aaron Podolefsky. His ability to create vision, build trust and collaboration resulted in motivating others to change if need be and be successful. He was proactive, always wanting to move toward what we want rather than reactively away from what we don't want to have happen. Aaron was about creating vision, and he was all about the future. He was a great leader. He focused on making places better than they were, whether it was a half a step, a whole step, 2.5 steps, whatever it is. He was always going halfway to the wall. He optimized the strength of an organization. He made the world of academia, community rich with scholars in multiple disciplines, even a better place to be, a better academy. Anyone working with Aaron always knew everything you did was going to be better because Aaron was involved in making that better. I also want to give special thanks to our student flutist, Scott Kowalty, for his performance, also to Annette Litch, Joel Hawk, Brenda Bass, Jim Lubker, Joe Marchesani, Keith Kennedy, Steve Kerrigan, Pat Wobler, and all those involved in making this day happen. And special thanks, where is she? Right here in the front row. I teased her today because she surprised me after 6 months and informed me that she's a woman that likes to make things happen. So I know Annette Lynch led the efforts for this particular day, and I know she knew when she raised her hand. I think the email was pretty quick back to her when she said, "Hey, Bill, we need to do something." And I said, "Absolutely." So thank you for making this event happen. And thank you all for coming to celebrate Aaron's legacy, his service, and his commitment to the University of Northern Iowa. Thank you.
I was never myself in the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences, so I can only speak to the respect Aaron had outside his college. He was always regarded as a faculty member in addition to being an administrator. He would regularly remind me that he in fact was a mathematics undergraduate major and his BA was in mathematics. He was in particular a mentor to me, showing me the kind of thought and participatory deliberation that led to his success. He was the only dean to serve in the Qualities of an Educated Person project at UNI, which provided an all-university opportunity for dialogue about the value of higher education and what we hope to accomplish here. I also had the opportunity to serve with him on the Presidential Search Committee that hired Bob Koob. We'll hear about that later in remarks that President Koob has provided for today. The prose poem Desiderata, meaning desired things, by Max Ehrmann, was a favorite of Aaron's. I suspect many of you have heard it, but it's my privilege to share it with you today. Go placidly amid the noise and the haste, and remember what peace there may be in silence. As far as possible, without surrender, be on good terms with all persons. Speak your truth quietly and clearly, and listen to others, even to the dull and the ignorant. They too have their story. Avoid loud and aggressive persons. They are vexations to the spirit. If you compare yourself with others, you may become vain or bitter, for always there will be greater and lesser persons than yourself. Enjoy your achievements as well as your plans. Keep interested in your own career, however humble. It is a real possession in the changing fortunes of time. Exercise caution in your business affairs, for the world is full of trickery. But let this not blind you to what virtue there is. Many persons strive for high ideals, and everywhere life is full of heroism. Be yourself, especially do not feign affection. Neither be cynical about love, for in the face of all aridity and disenchantment, It is as perennial as the grass. Take kindly the counsel of the years, gracefully surrendering the things of youth. Nurture strength of spirit to shield you in sudden misfortune. But do not distress yourself with dark imaginings. Many fears are born of fatigue and loneliness. Beyond a wholesome discipline, be gentle with yourself. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. You have a right to be here. And whether or not it is clear to you, no doubt the universe is unfolding as it should. Therefore, be at peace with God, whatever you conceive him to be. And whatever your labors and aspirations, in the noisy confusion of life, keep peace in your soul. With all its sham, drudgery, and broken dreams, it is still a beautiful world. Be cheerful, strive to be happy. Next, I invite Pat Wilbur, who is Aaron's administrative assistant, to share some remarks and readings.
I will be reading some remarks from Dr. Jerry Enteman. He was the former dean in the College of Natural Sciences. A tribute to Aaron Podolefsky. A little over 3 months ago, we lost a dear friend, colleague, husband, father, and tireless advocate for higher education, Aaron Podolefsky. For me, Aaron was much more than a professional colleague at UNI, where we served together as college deans for 8 years, and then I served under him during his first 2 years as provost. Aaron was a mentor, a trusted confidant, and most of all, a good friend. To have known Aaron was to have known someone who cared passionately about public higher education and the role it plays in serving the public good through the education of our citizenry. I will always remember Aaron as a kind and thoughtful man who saw social inequities and sought social justice, who saw the darkness of ignorance and lit the lamp of knowledge, and who looked into the eyes of young men and women, saw a college graduate in every one of them and asked, why not? That's right. During the years I served as Dean of Natural Sciences, while Aaron served as Dean of Social and Behavioral Sciences, and Jim Lupker as Dean of Humanities and Fine Arts, the three of us were called the Three Amigos, as we worked collaboratively and collegially to preserve and strengthen the liberal arts and sciences at UNI. Whenever Aaron and I attended conferences together, we always found time for fun. When we were in New York City, Aaron insisted that we indulge ourselves by consuming some Nathan hot dogs, which he considered to be the ultimate kosher delicacy experience. I also remember walking all over San Francisco with Aaron and stopping to browse in the City Lights bookstore, now a national landmark that specializes in world literature, the arts, and progressive politics. City Lights is known as a center for protest, for people with revolutionary ideas, and for people who wanted to change society. As a quintessential product of the turbulent 1960s, who loved the music of Janis Joplin and the poetry of Bob Dylan, it was natural for Aaron to be drawn to City Lights. I believe the best way we can remember Aaron and to honor his life and accomplishments is for each of us whose lives he touched to uphold the values he held dear and preserve the wonderful legacy he left behind. And for me, I had the pleasure of knowing and working with Aaron for 13 years. He was a wonderful colleague and friend. Many know him as an administrator and his passion for higher education, but I got to see other sides of Aaron. As a father, he loved his boys. He loved them and allowed them to grow into the men that they are today, orange, blue, red hair, and all. As a husband, he gave up a position as a provost so that Ronnie could finish her law degree. As we all know, he did achieve his goal to be a president of a university, but at that time and for that moment, he thought of Ronnie first. As a son, I saw him walk through a difficult time with strength and courage as he lost his mother, then his stepdad, and then his father, all within 1 year, and then lovingly cared for his mother-in-law at their home as she died from cancer several years later. And for me personally, Aaron and I had many discussions about life and the big picture of life. I so appreciate his thoughts and feel I am a better person by having known him. He touched many lives, and he certainly touched mine, and for that I'm very thankful.
Thank you, Pat. Our next speaker is Jim Lubker, former provost, past dean of the College of Humanities and Fine Arts, and one of the three amigos.
I would first like to read some remarks sent by Ben Allen, and he addresses these remarks to you, Ronnie, and to Isaac, and to Noah. Ronnie, Noah, and Isaac, Pat and I would regret that we could not be with you today, but I did want to share a few thoughts about Aaron and what I learned from him. My first significant impressions of the University of Northern Iowa were shaped to a large degree by Aaron. During my time as provost at Iowa State University, Aaron and I spent many hours together at meetings of the Council of Provosts, of which Aaron was the leader for most of my time there. At his last meeting with the Council of Provosts, he brought Jim Lubker along with him, and the three of us spent hours in an Ames restaurant talking about what it meant to be a provost and about life in general. I enjoyed Aaron's company and learned much from him about academic leadership. But others enjoyed his company and learned much from him as well. And it did not take long to realize that Aaron was a person who knew the importance of living life to the fullest. I witnessed this firsthand at the annual meetings of the American Association of State Colleges and Universities, an event attended by university presidents. Our fellow president sought out Aaron, recognizing that he was an extremely knowledgeable educator, a fun guy with wit and charm, and a natural leader. I most clearly remember that several more private times with Aaron and Ronnie, such as the walk we took at Torrey Pines, California, at one of the AASCU annual meetings. We discussed what was important in life and what was important in a university. A phone call that I will never forget is one that I received from Aaron about a year ago. We talked about how he should inform the campus community about his illness. He asked how I had made the announcement at UNI. His concern was focused on the effect of the announcement on the campus community, not on Aaron Podolefsky. Others have and will talk about his many legacies as an educator and leader at a number of universities, including UNI. To me, his legacies were the lessons he taught many of us on how to live a full, fun, and meaningful life, the important role of family and friends in living such a life, and the obligation we all have of helping others. He taught us these lessons not simply by his words, but in great part by his actions. I'd like to share a few of my own remembrances of Aaron. It's really easy to know when to start my remembrances. It's when we met. But it's so hard to know what to include because there was so much there. And you all want to have dinner someplace else tonight, and there are a lot of other people to speak. But I'll start where we met. Con and Disa and I came to UNI in 1995. We came from the University of Vermont, where I had been a department head and an associate dean of the College of Arts and Sciences. It was a fine school, but at that time, it was plagued with an administration that was not unlike a snake pit. We had gone through 4 or 5 presidents and 4 or 5 provosts in 12 years. 2 deans did not go to lunch without bringing a witness along. Really. So you might imagine that I was a little concerned when I had only been in my office for a couple of days, and this guy Podolefsky called and wanted to go to lunch. Well, I sucked it up and went down to the car to meet him, and he was alone. There was nobody else in the car. It was going to be just the 2 of us. And that's when I fell in love with Aaron Podolefsky. He advised, he counseled, he joked, he gave me inside tips, and he became a wonderful, sincere, down-home friend. We had a world of lunches. Sometimes just the two of us, more often with other people. We traveled to meetings. You know, you go to a meeting, the day is over, you've had dinner, maybe a couple of martinis, you're back up in your room. Maybe you're going to read a book, watch TV, relax. That was my first meeting with Aaron. The phone rang. It was Aaron. Why don't you come down to my room and we'll talk about whatever it was we were dealing with then. And that became the habit. Often it was very intimate included. We would go to Aaron's room until the wee hours of the morning, talking about whatever was current or needful on the campus or in our own lives. We talked as we walked through the redwoods. We talked at a funky little restaurant out on a pier in San Francisco Bay Area. And all the time, we talked over beers at one or another of our homes. And he continued through all of that in his talks to advise, to counsel, to tell jokes. And you know, he even listened and asked for advice and counsel from others. And he laughed at our jokes. And some of his advice wasn't always that easy to take. For instance, he might say, well, Jim, that's the right idea, but you're going to get hammered. And then he would chuckle and say one of his favorite quotes, but no good deed goes unpunished. You've heard him say that. Then, 4 or 5 years ago, sitting in our living room, he told Con and me about the cancer. My first thought was, well, I sure as hell wouldn't want to be a cancer having to go up fight against Aaron. But it wasn't a fair fight. And even in that fight, he provided advice and counsel. Our phone calls and our emails, which had been very heavy after he left town, he really was helpful all the way. They became fewer, but he still maintained that wonderful worldview, that wonderful sense of perspective, and that wonderful sense of humor that he brought to everything. I said that he talked a lot, that we all talked a lot, and we did. But what made it important was he didn't just talk. He lived what he said, and he acted what he said. You could trust him. I'm going to miss the talk. I'm going to miss the action. I'm going to miss him.
Thank you, Jim. Our next presentation is by Scott Cowelty, Emeritus Professor of English Language and Literature. And I will let Scott say whatever he would like to say about this.
I always need a helper to get this thing on. Thank you, Joel. Well, I talked with Aaron about a lot of things over the years, and academic freedom in Corpus Christi comes to mind. That was one of the major fights of actually the life on campus here for a year or so. And in general, the qualities of an educated person, we spent a lot of time talking about that since he was on the committee. And other things related to academia. The one thing we never talked about that I recall is music, which is amazing because as Isaac sent me the list of songs that he thought we could perform or think about, every one of those songs I knew and I'd performed about half of them. So I thought, Aaron, if we could have gotten together, maybe we could have sung some songs. I'm not sure, did he ever sing, Ronnie or Isaac? Was he ever a singer? Not well. Not well. Well, we had that in common too, so. Worked out. Anyway, I looked over the list of songs and chose a couple that seemed appropriate and also that Aaron appreciated. So I'll just do a couple of them here. One now and one a little bit. May God bless and keep you always. May your wishes all come true. May you always do your heart always be joyful, and your song always be sung. May you stay forever young, forever young, forever young. May you stay forever young.
Thank you, Scott. Next, would invite Pat Gatelman, the Special Assistant to the President for Board and Government Relations, to come up and say whatever you would like, Pat.
I'm reading the words of Bob Koob, who was the 8th president of UNI from 1995 to 2006. And I quote, "Aaron stood right out from the group from my first visit to UNI in 1995. His questions were intelligent and probing, but not hostile in any way. This approach to people served Aaron well for the entire time we were associated with one another, first as dean and subsequently as provost. The intelligence invited discussion, and the professional demeanor assured the discussion was fruitful. Among many hundreds of interactions, two stand out as illustrative of his extraordinary relationship with the faculty. As often happens, duress can bring out the exceptional in people. During one of several difficult budget years, the Iowa Regents universities were asked to cut in half the funds used for compensation growth. Iowa and Iowa State chose to cut across the board. But UNI had the additional constraint of a bargained contract for the expected increases. Our choice was, one, to reduce the number of positions in order to meet the contract funds that were available, or to negotiate another solution. Aaron was able to convince the faculty leadership that delaying their increase for 6 months was in everyone's best interest. He was exactly correct in this assertion. No faculty member lost their position, and the contracted increase was able to be in place by the end of the fiscal year in order to serve as the base for the next negotiation. In contrast, without Aaron available for negotiation, some staff bargaining units chose the route where employees did lose their jobs. The second experience occurred after Aaron left UNI to become president of another university. I recall approaching faculty leadership to ask their input on developing a job description for the search for the new provost. "Just like Aaron," was their response. When I pushed back with the suggestion that no one was perfect and surely they could think of something to add, the response was heated. Clearly, in their mind, Aaron was perfect. Such was the trust and respect that Aaron earned during his time at UNI. I consider myself most fortunate to have had the opportunity to work with him, and am grateful for all that I learned from our association. His contributions to the university were many and positive, but more important was the sense of dignity and community fostered among the many people he encountered.
Thank you, Pat. I'd now invite up Annette Lynch, Professor of Applied Human Sciences and a force of nature.
That's what my husband calls me. Thank you, Joel. I have remarks from Nancy Marlin, and I actually called her on the phone to sort of engage in this discussion and talked to her for probably close to an hour. And so many of the themes that we talked about were the incredible role that Erin played as a faculty advocate on this campus, and how much that mattered to what happened here, how much the campus grew, and the health of this campus in terms of being a place where people really wanted to go to work. And so it was really fun for me to reconnect with Nancy, and I do have extensive remarks here, which again, similar to what Jim said, are really kind of addressed to my front row here crew as well as the campus community. I served as provost at UNI from 1989 to 1998, and one of the best decisions I made during that time was to hire Aaron Podolefsky as dean. When I left UNI, I recommended Aaron to be appointed acting provost, which he was, and he subsequently became provost until he left for his first university presidency. Aaron was a great administrator because he was a great person. He was smart, collegial, collaborative, a staunch faculty advocate, my emphasis, and very funny. Beyond his administrative role, Aaron was proud and devoted to his family. For example, one of his primary concerns when we were recruiting him as dean was that his sons be able to attend the lab school. Just as Aaron cared deeply about the quality of his son's education, he cared about the quality of education for all UNI students, which is why he worked on improving the general education sequence. Aaron was an active participant in the National Organization for Women, both because of his belief in gender equality, yes, yes, but also because of Ronnie's leadership in that organization. He was extraordinarily proud of Ronnie's law practice and the type of cases she would take. When I would see Aaron at conferences over the years, he would always brag to me about the importance of Ronnie's work and talk about the opportunities that she was opening up in terms of creating more equity in the world. I've enclosed a photo from the UNI days, and that's a part of our photo montage out in the other room that I've had in my office wall for all these years. So Nancy actually took a photo down from her office in San Diego and has sent it to us to display here, and then she also wants Ronnie to be able to take that home. But I thought it was really telling that as we were talking on the phone, she was saying, yes, I'm looking at Aaron right now. So he was in her office in San Diego, so I think that says a lot. I'm taking off from this letter a little bit. It was taken in New Orleans, where some of us would go to recruit graduate students from Southern University. To get the cheapest airfare at that time, we had to stay over Saturday night, which had us in the French Quarter for Halloween, and that's what this picture is of. I kept this photo because it reminded me of the wonderful time we had together. In fact, we actually had difficulty getting the photo taken as first one somewhat inebriated man. They'd asked to have the picture taken and he'd be too drunk, so they had to get another one to take the picture, and finally they got this amazing picture taken that is now in Ronnie's collection. We finally succeeded in having someone take our photo, and Erin is the one on the right. I'm not sure why I guess because they all have masks on. UNI is a better university for having had Aaron Podolefsky as a long-term academic administrator. I am grateful to have had Aaron as a colleague and a friend. Nancy Marlin. My own comments will be short. I was at the community engagement retreat yesterday morning, And part of the opening question was, why did you come to UNI? Why did you stay at UNI? I came to UNI because I was interviewed by Aaron as the dean when I came here as a fresh PhD, and he was authentic, he was real, I trusted him, and it was really clear if I came to UNI, I could make a difference. He would facilitate and really do everything he could do as administrator to open the doors to making change on this campus. He did that first with the Textiles and Apparel program, which he really helped us move from sending students into stores to sending students to Hong Kong to do product development. He really backed that program. He also, when we started, I became director of Women's and Gender Studies, and I started to do the gender violence work. He came to the task force meetings as first a dean and then a provost. He got very committed to the work that we were doing. He institutionalized Save Forum Actors, the program that we started with the grant with Karen Mitchell as the director. So the man made a huge difference in terms of enabling faculty and students in partnership and staff to make real changes on this campus. So thank you to Aaron Podolefsky for his legacy, and really glad to have his family here to help us celebrate today. Thank you.
Thank you, Annette. I'd next invite up Brenda Bass, the interim dean of College of Social and Behavioral Sciences. And after her remarks, we'll hear another selection from Flute Fusion.
Well, I knew I was in trouble when I saw that I was following Annette, but the foundation of the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences as we know it today is built on who Aaron was and his beliefs and his values. And so much of who we are today, we owe it to Aaron in terms of the college that I represent today. And I mean that sincerely. In terms of my own relationship with him, as Annette said, I also was hired by him as a very young and very green assistant professor. But to this day, I remember that interview, and he was in his jeans and sports coat. And I remember thinking, okay, here's a place where you can be yourself and you can do your work. And everything that I've known about Aaron since then, as I myself have moved into the dean's office, has confirmed that he set the stage for that to be the culture within our college. He's still held in very high regard within our college. And so he's got a lasting legacy, not only campus-wide, but also in the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences. Today, I have the pleasure of bringing remarks from two of the former deans. I have remarks from Jill Wallace as well as Phil Macheri, who were unable to be here. I will try to channel Jill and then Phil a little bit for those of you that know them, but bear with me. I may not get it exactly right. So Jill says, "I'm very sorry I cannot be with all of Aaron's UNI friends today. This man meant so much to me as a role model and as a friend. I would like to send my very best to all of Aaron's family and the friends gathered today. I met Aaron and Ronnie over 20 years ago on their first visit to UNI as I chaired the search for a new dean of the College of Social and Behavioral Sciences. After he was selected, I became his first administrative pupil as assistant dean, and we shared many good conversations about leadership challenges and pathways into higher education. Now, Aaron was an adventurer and had a great sense of humor. I remember when he purchased his first all-wheel drive, a Toyota Highlander, which he and his family, and probably his dogs, took off-road that first weekend. Now, I don't think he told me how much he had to pay to get the Toyota out of the ditch, but he sure had fun telling the story. And Ronnie, you'll have to share the story with us later at the reception. Aaron also appointed me as chair of the Department of Psychology in 1993. In celebration of my appointment, Aaron gave me a copy of Leadership Secrets of Attila the Hun with certain passages already underlined. which if you know Jill, this would strike her sense of humor as well. He did have a sense of humor, but when it came to understanding the leadership responsibilities associated with his role in public higher education, Aaron was all serious. The institutions he served are better for his being part of their history, and he truly was a natural leader and a great man. And then Phil sends these remarks. I first met Aaron during my job interview at UNI in the spring of 1994. He was dean of CSBS at the time. His first question was, "So, you're from New York. Why do you want to come here?" Aaron always got to the point. After my initial surprise at the question, Phil also being a New Yorker, he says, "I thought I'd be direct as well," and he answered, "It's a job." So during our time together at UNI, I always considered him a mentor and a friend. I think Aaron always viewed his role as dean and provost in large part as helping the faculty achieve their goals, working to help them overcome problems, and finding ways to facilitate and support their efforts. I remember when I was applying for a Fulbright and realized that there would be financial stress in doing a Fulbright. I went and I spoke to Aaron, and he said, "We need to find a way to support the faculty who want to do this." He ultimately came up with a formula to provide salary support for those seeking these sorts of experiences. Aaron's dedication to the ideal of a university as a mechanism to improve people's lives and building a better society is one that will live on. Thank you.
a very interesting arrangement. Well played. Thank you. Now I'd like to invite members of the community to share their remembrances and remarks, if you would. Steve has a microphone, and we'll go.
Ronnie probably doesn't even know this, or Isaac. I had both of their boys at the lab school, and I remember the red hair day. And the pyrotechnics in the plays. But as a young faculty member, I was a United Faculty President as an untenured faculty member, and Aaron wasn't afraid of having the difficult, or he was always proactive in terms of his conversations. And I can remember as a dean, he called me as a United Faculty President and said, I think I have an issue. What can we do about it? And he was always thinking in advance to be proactive. And that's something probably nobody else knows about because I was the only one involved.
Thank you, Lynn.
Hello. I kind of knew Aaron in several different contexts, both as a department head as well as president of the union. In fact, when we discussed, the delay when we were having budget cuts, that was something that we worked out together. In looking at this and thinking about what I would say today, I've kind of prepared some remarks. It seems such a short time ago when Aaron was our provost. It's hard to accept the loss of an academic leader so committed to improving educational quality and academic freedom in higher education. However, even though the time was shorter than we would have liked, celebrating Aaron's many contributions gives us the opportunity to hopefully learn and emulate his legacy of leadership. When preparing for today's celebration, committee members noted Aaron's love of the different styles of music from classical to rock. Someone mentioned that he enjoyed the songs of Simon and Garfunkel and suggested we play Bridge Over Troubled Waters. However, that song may be discarded as one that, while representing the period we have been through the last 2 years, it's significantly different from the one characterized by Aaron's tenure at UNI. I think Aaron served us more in terms of Sister Sledge's song, We Are Family, because he really viewed those whom he met as a part of a larger extended family. Aaron faced many challenges during his tenure as provost, no different than those we face today. His term was contentious, largely due to external forces that desired changes departing from a university's core values and mission. Central to Aaron's character was his steadfast belief that through reasoned dialogue, a way could be found to preserve what was good at UNI. He was akin to the type of leader President Kennedy wrote about in Profiles of Courage when he said, "A man does what he must in spite of personal consequences, in spite of obstacles and dangers and pressures, and that is the basis of all human morality." Most faculty are well aware of the 2001 controversy involving performance of the play Corpus Christi. Despite significant pressure from interests outside the university, Aaron, as provost, spoke up for the principles of academic freedom and freedom of speech on our campus. He realized that a university that does not permit creative expression, debate, and open inquiry really is not a university at all, but rather a forum for the narrow interests of a select few who really want to control the thoughts of others. For his unwavering support of principles of academic freedom, Aaron was recognized by AUP. However, this outward example of Aaron's principles may provide only a limited glimpse into the wider range of leadership decisions Aaron made here at UNI. I first met Aaron during orientation for new faculty administrators in 1990. He was coming as Dean of the College of Social and Behavioral Science. I was entering as head of the newly created Finance Department. On the basis of our conversations between orientation sessions, we discovered our common affinity for mathematics. I in actuarial science and he in statistics. Later, we both served on the administrative negotiating team for the master agreement. A thankless job, but someone had to do it, and our number came up. Many a night was spent waiting for the Board of Regents attorney to discover which side of the fence he wanted to be on when negotiating the agreement language. One night, Aaron suggested we watch a movie, and so he dug up a copy of John Goodman's film Babe for us and while we were waiting for word negotiations. I soon realized that Aaron was a baseball fan, and growing up in St. Louis, my baseball background was, again, a source of commonality between us. I also found that Aaron had a great sense of humor. He was an affable person. Later, when I became president of the University Union United Faculty, we continued to enjoy a friendly and collegial relationship despite the countervailing interests we represented in terms of bargaining. Even though there were disagreements, Aaron was a considerate and caring friend who enjoyed a reasoned debate with a willingness to turn a decision based on academic principles. He maintained a sense of perspective as well as a good-natured outlook on life. I recall 2 incidents in this regard. Early into his career as provost, he was notified of an incident where one of the deans had threatened faculty in the middle of a department meeting. Upon hearing that a dean had threatened the faculty, he decided that he would investigate. He contacted the dean and asked whether, in fact, the threat had been issued. The dean denied any incident had occurred, perhaps under this notion of plausible deniability. However, this particular meeting had been audio taped by the dean, who insisted himself on having the meeting recorded. Upon receiving a copy of the tape, Aaron immediately sought to remedy the situation in such a way as to assure faculty of their safety and respect at the university. This incident was a source of amusement as time went by, largely due to the protestations of that dean. Aaron understood the human frailties of some administrators and was willing to protect faculty when things could have gotten out of control. On the other hand, the other incident occurred shortly before he left to become college president. In his last year here, as the school was just starting, I had a faculty member call the first day of class to report that they were being assigned to an office outside the lab school where they normally taught. As UF president, I offered to come and assess what was happening in terms of the office space. This faculty member had a leave of absence to teach elsewhere a year earlier, and upon her return, she was assigned an office with no telephone and limited access to students. Knowing Aaron, I immediately suggested we go to his office to discuss the situation. We waited outside his office, and when he came out, he greeted this faculty member as if they were a new member of the faculty. I should say that Aaron greeted all the faculty as if they were a new member of the faculty with joy and respect. So as far as I was concerned, it was kind of usual. He was a welcoming person. However, for this faculty member, his interest in her as a person immediately allayed her concerns about how the university would treat her in this matter. Aaron was, upon hearing her story, stated that he would see to it that she had the same office she had prior to her leave. One of the administrative assistants, listening to the conversation and apparently knowing what was going on, tried to get Aaron to equivocate his position into saying that she would be given an office somewhere in the lab school. He wouldn't have none of it, and that was the decision he made on the spot. My view is that Aaron genuinely cared about faculty and was also keenly committed to a principle of fairness. He had a big picture view of what a university was about. Aaron believed that things that matter most must never be at the mercy of things that matter least. In conclusion, I can recall attending commencements with Aaron during the years when President Kurz presided. At the end of those proceedings, he often offered this benediction in charge, attributed to the Roman Emperor Julian, which I think aptly describes how Aaron may be remembered on this campus, as well as a perspective on life's journeys. May God, in his goodness, be your guide wherever you may journey. And as the God of strangers and the friendly one, may he receive you graciously and lead you safely by land. And if you must go by sea, may the waves be smooth. And may you be beloved and honored by all you meet, welcomed when you arrived, and regretted when you leave. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank.
The wonderful thing about Aaron was if you'd see him on the campus, he'd stop and chat with you as if he was never in a rush. You could find him in the student union. He'd be sitting there. People were always welcome to join him, and they were always with him at the table. I want to go back to the Equal Rights Amendment, a really, really fun time that we had. Aaron and Ronnie were really heading the National Organization for Women. At these meetings, we met for, was it over 3 years, from the early 1990s. He was our dean in the Department of Social and Behavioral Sciences. So I thought, this is wonderful, a dean who's a feminist. I had never known such a thing. We had speakers there, and then we organized to change the law in the state of Iowa. When we used to meet, it was only maybe 4 or 5 of us at some of these meetings, but the group expanded, and there are at least hundreds of us, if not 1,000, out there marching. The women of the campus seemed like they were all there, the men on the campus, and Ronnie was rallying us on. Well, we were there also for voting day to vote for this ERA. Were you there, Victoria? And but Phyllis Schlafly, unfortunately, came to town, and she turned the whole thing into a homophobic kind of event and destroyed it, and at that time the ERA didn't pass, although later it quietly got through the state legislature. That was wonderful, a wonderful bonding experience, I think, for all of us. I want to go back to Bowling Green, Kentucky. Aaron also had a reputation as a defender of underdogs. He was the head of the sociology department. I had lived there for years. He came immediately, and I came immediately from Bowling Green, Kentucky. He had backed up the women in the department, and he backed up the social work faculty who were the underdogs very definitely in that department. Another thing I want to mention is academic freedom. Again, there was the Corpus Christi incident. The play to me sounded absolutely dreadful, but it was a situation of academic freedom. And then in 1999, that's when I wrote a somewhat unfortunate, quickly written letter to U.S. News and World Report against ROTC. Email was new, relatively new at that time, at least it was new to me, and I got 1,000 emails, totally hostile emails. The university got probably dozens, maybe 100 as far as I know. One day I looked in the newspaper and there was a statement from Aaron defending academic freedom of the faculty. And I was so pleased with that.
Just to make sure that Aaron not only liked all the faculty, he liked everybody. And I'm proof of that with my brown shirt on. And Aaron and I got to know each other from when I had Saban and Searly both as my buildings as an area mechanic, and it was just great to be with him. And I have to tell a quick story. After being with Aaron, you just thought so highly of him, and you just thought he could do everything. And one day, he took me aside. I used to call the restroom down at the president's end of Searly, the executive restroom. That's where the president and Aaron and I went. And and we happened to just be in there, and he said, "Dave, you've got to get that stall door fixed." He said, "If somebody else comes in that stall next to me," he says, "my door opens," and he says, "I can't, my arms are too short, I can't shut the door." And I just burst out laughing, and he looked at me and he says, "What are you laughing so much about?" And I said, "Aaron," I said, "I just thought you would command the door shut." So, but what a wonderful man that we're celebrating his life today. He's just a tremendous guy, and we missed him when he left, and we'll miss him forever.
Thank you, Dave.
I'm Jessica Moon, and I get the honor of being able to speak about my time with Aaron as a student, which no one has talked about to this point. So when I came to UNI, I had the opportunity to work in the dean's office as a student employee. And I would say, as I'm sitting here reflecting on what everyone's talked about, it's all absolutely true. I had kind of a master class in administrative leadership by being able to sit right outside his office and kind of observe the way that he worked with people. I know a lot of work took place, but I do really recall the lunches with Dean Lubker and Dean Intamin. A lot of lunches took place. And it taught me that he really cared about relationships and friendships, and that's what leadership was about to him. And I hope that I can mimic that and be that for my students. Our students are learning a lot from us in the time that they work with us, and so what I'm hoping is that I'm able to demonstrate some of the things I learned from Aaron to the students that I now teach, and I give him a lot of credit for the fact that I'm in this role that I am now, and so I guess that's kind of his legacy.
Thank you, Jessica.
Hi, I'm Keith Kroof. Some of you know me, some of you don't. I was asked by Aaron to put my name in the hat for department head a few years. And I was not sure I was ready for this, and he took me in, mentored me, and taught me a lot. The thing I remember most about those years were the times that Aaron and I disagreed on things. He was a model for working with people that were sitting on the other side of the table on an issue. And I try to adopt that into my own life as much as possible. And I think he really did that. And just a couple other things. I was glad that Jessica spoke up, because some of the things on campus that wouldn't be here if it were not for Aaron would include the honors program and summer school. When you're doing budget cuts, one of the first things people wanted to do was cut the summer school budget. Aaron found or suggested a way out of that and made it more or less pay for itself. So those are just some of the things that I remember about Aaron that I wanted to share with Ronnie and the kids. And I'll second here, Aaron really loved you guys.
Thank you, Keith.
I'm Paul Ryder. I was the head of the chemistry department when Aaron was here. And I want to just make mention of the fact that I had a couple of encounters with him that were of the kind that you have when you want something, you think your department needs it or whatever. And I had an encounter with him where I had really prepared in the best scientific way I could all the data, and I had an airtight argument about what I thought he ought to do. And so we had a long talk about it, and he was very respectful, and I was respectful toward him. And when we got to the end of the conversation, he would not give in. But I walked out of there feeling he'd really listened to me, and he exemplified what I think is most important in academic administrators. He was a first among equals, that he made you feel like he understood what your issue was and how you felt about it. He'd been in your position. And I think the very best academic administrators are those who act that way, that they are not really above you, but they have the hard work to do, and you have to be able to work with them. So he truly was a first among equals, and we will really miss him.
Well, thank you all for sharing with us. We appreciate that very much. Next, I'll bring up Karen Mitchell, Professor of Communication Studies.
When Annette Lynch asked for a volunteer to head up a way to remember Aaron on campus, my hand shot up in the air. Aaron was full of ideas, and so am I. Aaron's a little bit better at was always better at getting his implemented. But this one was easy. Isaac and I talked, and we knew for sure that we wanted to do something that would support students. And we've established a the Aaron Podolefsky Project Fund for CSBS students. There are envelopes on the table out in front of the video that's playing in the other room, and you can make a contribution to that. But that didn't seem like enough for me. And Isaac and I thought, well, there should be a special place that honors Aaron. The foundation shot down the idea of a beer garden in the Union. I know. So, we went with a conference room. And for two reasons. One, there are these round tables that have beer kegs in the middle of them that you could put in there if you wanted to. But also because Aaron was so collaborative, and he believed that any problem could be solved if people would sit down, talk, debate, and compromise and collaborate to find an answer. Ronnie, I have been so sad since August. But today I've thought about all those wonderful years when I was, a young faculty member trying to find my way, at the ERA meetings that Catherine mentioned, and Aaron was always there to listen. When I think of great communicators, I think of Aaron Podolefsky. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. We will hear a second selection from Scott Kowalty.
Two of the themes that run through most of the stories and anecdotes and ideas this afternoon, remembrances, are optimism and hope in the face of the horrors of life at times that come along. The darkest of times still provokes optimism and hope in certain people, and that certainly was true of Aaron. And this is a song that carries that forward, Leonard Cohen's song, Sisters of Mercy. Later they brought me their song.
Thank you, Scott. I'd like to invite now Ronnie or Isaac or Laura, if there's anything you'd like to say, you're welcome to come up and do that.
Well, in the tradition of my father, I'd let my mother have the last word. Thank you, everybody, for the warm reception. It's pretty overwhelming coming to this campus. I grew up on this campus, and there's so many faces, people here that my family, we all love and know. First, I'd really like to personally express thank you to the people that brought this together. You really don't understand how much of an impact you've made on my life to be able to share a little more insight and see another part of my dad. So thank you. I'd also like to thank my wife, Laura, for being here and for also supporting me through the last couple of years, some difficult times for us. And in my father's tradition, also to recognize my mother and thank her for not only being my friend, but also the beacon of strength and courage that brought so much happiness into his life and mine. Although, if he was here, he'd point out that was a typo in my speech, and it should have read, she brought the bacon into our lives. Either one will do. But I'd like to share a side of him that most of you rarely saw. He was known on this campus as many things, as an administrator and as a scholar, as a collaborator and as a friend, and of course as a connoisseur of good food. But only a child can express what it's like to look up to someone as a parent. And my father was an engaging parent. He would sit and talk around the dinner table. He would challenge us to think about things from different perspectives, to approach situations and people with empathy and compassion. And as a parent, he was a kind man. He was always patient. He was always supportive. He was always somebody you could turn to for advice, because he was never angry. He was never short. He was never judgmental or critical. And he was always proud of your accomplishments. He stood alongside you, no matter what the situation. My father and my mother are the type of parents that when things happened, they'd sit down and they'd say, "Don't beat yourself up. Let me tell you about one time, ... They both have a natural ability to connect to how people are feeling. And it always amazed me that not only could my father understand how I felt, but he could always one-up me on some bad decision I'd made. Even when I jumped off a parking garage and broke my foot, 2 months later he jumped off a hay trailer and broke his leg. Now that's a father that'll do anything for his kid. And my father was a very down-to-earth person. He's often seen walking around the campus in jeans and a Grateful Dead t-shirt. And when I would call, he would enthusiastically answer the phone, "Hey, dude." And he was humble, and he accepted people as they are without reservation. When I was younger, we would walk around this campus together, and he would know everyone. Professors, secretaries, janitorial staff, public safety officers, even the students. But not just their names. He knew who they were. He knew what they did, and he knew about their families and their personal lives. He was always concerned about every person. He made certain to be inclusive and make everyone feel welcomed and that they counted. But as an adolescent, this had a profound impact on me. I learned from him. I learned from him that it was not only important, but necessary to concern oneself with the well-being of others, to be socially responsible, to help others who are in need. When I was about 12 years old, we lived out in the country, and one night while we were driving home, we saw a car on the side of the road. And a little bit later down the road, we saw a person walking, and this is in the middle of the wintertime. And my dad stopped. And, this is pre-cell phone days. And my dad asked if they were okay, found out they'd ran out of gas. And of course, he insisted they get out of the cold and into the warm car. And that was followed by driving to the house, getting a gas can, some gasoline, and giving the young man a couple gallons of gas to get to a station. And the young man tried to give my dad some money, and he refused. And he said, in a very gentle way, he said, "Someday, you'll be driving down the street, and you'll see somebody in need, and you'll help them." My dad gave me a lot of advice over the years. Don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Treat others as you would want to be treated yourself. Always thank your mother. Don't stand behind the horse. There was a few I had to learn the hard way. But he was a straightforward person, and he looked at things objectively. He didn't try to find hidden meanings. He didn't try to find hidden agendas. He was always he always approached people and took them at their face value and didn't try to read into things more than they probably were. And if you asked him, he'd probably tell you it was just a song about a boy and his dragon. That was the type of parent my father was. He was not only a wonderfully compassionate person, he was articulate, and he knew how to take a complicated issue and explain it in a very simple form. He often commented to me that decisions were not always black and white. They were not always easy, but that your moral compass would help you find the right thing to do. And as parents, he and my mother did more than instill a moral compass in me. They both, together, were the lighthouses casting visibility on the rocky terrain, and they allowed me to learn to navigate the waters of ethical dilemmas for myself. Thank you. Good luck.
I hadn't planned to speak today, but sometimes the Spirit moves me. And Isaac and I are sharing, for those of you who may remember, one of Aaron's classic handkerchiefs. I've heard a lot of things today, some I've never known before, and they've made a huge difference. Putting this together and all the work it took, but the passion that it took and the importance of good people being together, because Aaron would be here with us now. He is. There's a piece of him in all of us, but there's also just his spirit that sticks around somehow. I'll just tell you a few short things. I know I don't want to talk too long. Lawyers can't shut up. Sorry about that. I was engaged to be married in 1972. I had been engaged for 2 years. My wedding was planned for the summer, and it wasn't Aaron. And I ended up going to a party at a house that Aaron was sharing with a lot of other guys, and met him, talked to him, and I loved him immediately. He just had that. And the next day, I said to my mother, who had planned the wedding of her dreams, Mom, I feel very strange. I'm not sure I should be getting married because I met someone last night that I just had feelings about that I've never had before with anyone, being that special. And perhaps I'm not really in love with the fellow I'm going to marry a month from now. And I thought my mother would be so upset. But being a good parent and being honest, my mother was very honest, she just got so joyful and said, "Wonderful, I didn't like your fiancé anyway." She got on the phone, started calling her sisters, she canceled the whole wedding. And then about a week later, Aaron and I had a date or so, and he came to the house, and my mother met him, and the first thing she said was, he had hair down to here and a beard as long, and she said, "He looks like a rabbi." And then the next thing she said was, "Aaron, could you rent a tuxedo? We could still have the wedding." They loved each other. It was an amazing, but he had that effect. There was just something, if I could bottle it, the world would be a better place. I know, Jim, you talked before about you and Jerry and Aaron getting together and talking sometimes till 3 in the morning or later, and doing it over a few beers. We lived in the bush in Papua New Guinea for some time when Aaron did his doctoral research. And there were times that about 5 o'clock in the morning, we'd hear voices outside of our little shack, and we'd hear someone saying, "Harry." They thought his name was Harry. Didn't matter. "Harry, you me tok long beer?" They spoke pidgin. And they would show up with a 6-pack of warm beer, and Aaron would drag himself out of bed and just have a wonderful time at 5 o'clock in the morning drinking warm beer with good people. And I stayed in bed. But he just had that knack. Yes, we had a forerunner. And the real story about the forerunner was Aaron and Isaac and I had gone out for a drive on a beautiful day. We planned to go down to Cedar Rapids. And he has a way of saying, "Well, let's take a new path." And so we did. We took that new path down some dirt roads and came to a river. Late winter, big chunks of ice floating through this river and going everywhere except, well, I'll tell you more. We saw a road ahead of us. We went down the road. It went into the river, and you could see it came out on the other side. And as I'm about to say, "Don't," his foot hit the gas, and off we went into the river. And so we got stuck there. Isaac thought we would die there. He had his the water was filling the vehicle up, and big chunks of ice were hitting us, and we both volunteered Aaron to go get us out of it. About 45 minutes later, he showed up with a tractor, a farmer on a tractor. And the farmer's first and only comment was, "It's the first time I've come to do this in daylight for someone who's sober." There were some wonderful things here, so many wonderful things. And as people spoke and music and everything else, pieces came back to me, which is so special because you lose pieces, you forget. But I thank you for that gift. Amazing Grace. I don't know how many of you were at the performance, but when the PAC opened, it was just an absolute wonder. For those of you who weren't here before that, you can't imagine. Acoustically perfect hall. And Aaron and I were sitting quietly, total darkness, waiting for the lights to come on, for something to happen. And then we heard the pure voice of Judy Collins singing Amazing Grace in the darkness. I can't say any more than that. So thank you for Amazing Grace, and thank you for Forever Young, because that was Aaron. Always. He was always full of ideas and thinking ahead, and even at the end when he was very ill, he was still someone who would take all the strength he had to smile when someone came to see him. It was never about him, as someone else said. When he was a little boy, and he may have told this story at some point, but it always said to me who Aaron was. His grandfather, Yiddish would be his Zeta. He called him his Zeta. When Aaron was 13, he had his bar mitzvah, when 13-year-old Jewish boys are somehow ritualistically told that they're now adults and they're responsible for everything. It doesn't happen, but nevertheless. And so Aaron was saying his prayers in a temple, synagogue, shul, we call shul. And when he was done, they didn't have much money. So his father and stepmother and his grandfather and the few people who came went downstairs to a room to share a honey cake. That was their refreshments and their celebration. And when they got down there, they discovered that a bum from the street had wandered in, and he was sitting there licking up the last crumbs of the cake he had just eaten. And so Aaron's father was really upset. And he was getting very angry at this poor bum who was sitting there eating the cake. And Aaron Zeta turned to him and said, Ray, Shah, Ray, the man's hungry. That takes a lot for people to have that in them to listen and to think and not to assume malice by other people. That's a harder way to live. It takes effort. And he did it all the time. He worked all the time. Those of you who remember and spoke about no one losing their job during the times that he was here. And the other things that happened. Corpus Christi, I mean, I remember seeing the threat letters that came to our house. He'd come to work smiling and sometimes serious, but I saw him struggling. It wasn't hard for him, but he spent all of his time thinking about how to do things better, how he can do things right for people. It didn't just happen when he walked into a room. He worked at it all the time because it meant so much to him. He was our beacon, Isaac, and he was my beacon. And thanks for putting the burden on me. I got to be a beacon now. I have to thank all of you. You all talked about how he did things and made such a difference in your lives, but that doesn't happen without the right people coming together. Aaron's life here was a joy. It was hard work for him, but that gave him joy. And the joy came from being amongst good people who conferred with each other, who took the time to work hard at doing good work. His joy was not to be the center of attention, but to facilitate people doing their best joyfully, to remove the obstacles. And you are what made his life wonderful, because you're productive people, you're creative people, you educate, you care about public education. That is not everywhere. And so I thank you for what you gave him when he was here. And I should tell you, had he known that Dr. Koob was going to leave so soon after he went, we would have stayed. And it troubled him that he couldn't apply for the job. Because he said, I have a responsibility now here to the people at the University of Central Missouri. I can't come in and leave a year later. That wouldn't be right. But his heart was here, and he sometimes would say, I wish I had known. I wouldn't have left. Not that his time with another school wasn't also wonderful in its own way, but I want you to know that he didn't leave because he wasn't happy here. And just to finish up, I told you I talked too much. Sisters of Mercy is perfect. I won't be jealous if I hear that they've sweetened your life, or your night. We weren't lovers like that, but besides, it would still be all right. Aaron and I had a relationship where we loved each other so much, but we also respected each other so much that we didn't belong to each other. We were walking our own paths, but voluntarily walking side by side. And there was never a jealousy. There was never, gee, I want this thing and you don't care if I want it, or expectations or anything like that. It was how he reacted with everyone here. You are your own people, and things work because you respect each other and because you understand that you don't own the other person. It's voluntarily that they are walking beside you because something in you is something special. And so I would ask that all of you remember that, not only at work, but every day in how you think about other people. Expectations are something you should only have of yourself. And be kind there too. Thank you for doing this. It's wonderful to be back here. And I know that Aaron is here. I feel him here. And just want you to know that he's also walking alongside you, and he did a long time before, and he will continue to do that. You just have to see him there. Okay? Thank you.
Ronnie and Isaac, thank you so much for sharing stories of Aaron, but also sharing Aaron with us. Aaron and you both will be part of our family at UNI, so thank you for being here today. Harry Broad, a professor of sociology, will lead the Mourners Kaddish.
It is my honor and privilege this afternoon to lead the recitation of the Jewish mourners' prayer, the mourners' Kaddish, for our departed friend, Aaron Podolefsky. We have distributed the transliteration. You should have that on a sheet. You are invited to join if you wish. Traditionally, the family stands for the recitation of the Kaddish. In recent decades, we have expanded the definition of family to the extended family, the extended community as a whole, and certainly what we speak of as the family and community of you and I are part of the family. So I ask you to stand if you are able. Yiskadal v'yiskadash shemei rabo, b'yalma divrachu say, v'yamlich malchusei, b'chayachon u'v'yomechon, u'v'chayei dechol beis Yisrael, bagolav izman kariv v'yimru, Amen. Yehesh mei rabba mavach le'olam l'olmeo mayo. Yisparach v'yishtabach v'yisparar, v'yispaman v'yisnasei, v'yisadar v'yisaleh v'yisalal, shemei dekodesho b'richu, le'elo min kol v'roso v'shiroso, tush bechoso v'nechemoso, damiron v'yalma v'yimru, Amen. Yehesh shlomo rabba min shemayo, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, Amen. Oseh shalom bin romav, huya oseh shalom, aleinu v'al kol Yisrael, v'yimru, Amen.
Thank you, Harry. And thank all of you who are here today to help us celebrate Aaron Podolefsky. Our flute ensemble will play 2 more pieces, and immediately after that there is a reception across the hall in the Georgian Lounge, and I'd invite you to join all the friends and family there. Thank you.
dear to me as life itself, but life itself, my wife, and all the world are not esteemed above thy life. I would lose all. Sacrifice them all here to this devil to deliver you.
Your wife would give you little thanks for that if she were by to hear you make the offer.
I have a wife who I protest I love. I would she were in heaven so she could entreat some power to change this currish Jew.
'Tis well you offer it behind her back. The wish would make else an unquiet house.
We trifle time. I pray, pursue sentence.
A pound of that same merchant's flesh is thine. The court awards it, and the law doth give it.
Most rightful judge.
And you must cut this flesh from off his breast. The law allows it, and to the